Welcome to the Clutch Time Podcast with your host, Daniel Kreider and Ryan Vargas. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah. Here we are once again. Episode number 11. Once again, had some really good games this week. Rutgers knocks off Purdue. Arizona beats Illinois. West Virginia beats UConn. And basketball, Alabama beats Kentucky. It was Notre Dame, not Alabama. And then Bryce Young picks up the Heisman. And a whole lot of stuff we'll be talking about today. And I just want to welcome my co-host, Ryan Vargas and Ryan Palmer. How you guys doing today?
What's going on, man? I'm doing good.
Hey, Dan and Ryan. I'm doing all right.
He's got the water pot. I love it.
Well,
I love it.
I remember you guys saying something maybe my third episode that I get a mic after 5. I think I'm at like 7. So I'm wondering where my mic is. Is it coming on Amazon, UPS? What are you guys sending me here?
Well, this is the deal, man. They said that all the shipments are delayed because of Christmas. And
Christmas and COVID.
I'm telling you, it's either Christmas or COVID. They just, I got to call them. I need to get in touch with the CEO because this is ridiculous.
Okay, so I will be expecting a mic because now I'm using a water bottle because I'm about to quench y'all's thirst for college football knowledge.
Yeah, I love it. Let's get right into it. And Bryce Young gets the Heisman. And I want to know, Palmer, what are some of your thoughts? And before I do, I want to say this. I was extremely shocked to not see Frank Harris, the quarterback for UTSA, or McCormick, the running back, or Franklin, the wide receiver, not in the running for the Heisman. Roadrunners are getting snuffed once again, and I'm kind of upset about this.
Not cool.
So absolutely, I agree. And I'm just wondering how long that Google search took for you to find out those names.
Well, they weren't actually even on the internet. I had to call down there. No, just kidding. No, that's bogus.
I'm going to actually start asking our fans to send me stuff. So for you guys who are just listening, just know that Clutch Time does have a YouTube channel. So you can actually see how handsome Ryan is, how great Dan is at his job, and how awesome my mustache looks. So like, share, and subscribe. And maybe let's even start a poll. Who is the most handsome of the Ryans at Clutch Time?
Oh,
and
wow.
I personally, I don't know if I want to do that, though, because I don't want it to be a landslide towards Vargas's favor. But to answer your question about the Heisman, I'm not a big fan of what happened this year. And when I say this, guys, I want to kind of preface it like this. I'm not that talented. I can never go to University of Alabama. I can't go to Ohio State. So these gentlemen are really talented, but are they Heisman worthy? I don't even know if CJ Stroud or Bryce Young are the most talented players on their roster. But the reason why they got the nod for the Heisman is because of the quarterback. And so maybe we should change this Heisman Award for best college football player to the Heisman Award for college quarterbacks. And yes, sure, you get some deviations in there with a running back or, that Smith kid last year who was a receiver for Alabama. But how often is it a quarterback? And I don't even really think these guys are the best quarterbacks in college football. That kid from Pitt, I forgot his name, but I mean, that kid's pretty raw. And I don't know. So good job, Bryce Young. I'm happy for you. Like I said, you're very talented just to get to the University of Alabama. Are you the Heisman? They'll give up your award. Give it to Reggie Bush. I bet you he misses it.
Hey. Shout out to Reggie Bush, man.
Yeah, Reggie Bush was a killer, man. And this is my thoughts. I get what you're saying, and it seems that way. It seems like that way most of the time. So it's just like for basketball, for instance, you get a lot of these MVP votes and whatnot. And some of these players, it's like, is that really an MVP? Like, some of these guys that get the MVP, for instance, that team's going to be successful whether they're in there or not. If that makes any sense, to where MVP is the most valuable player. And I think that in America, we're so caught up in the points and the dunks and the home runs or whatever that looks like. And we don't think about, like, there's plenty of role guys that I feel like have been MVPs and just never even been considered, but like you said, is he the most talented guy on that roster? Probably not. I seen that kid from Pitt, and he's actually really freaking good, like really good. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on stuff like that. But at the same time, you get what you get. I mean, we just know that's what it's always going to be. I don't really see anything changing.
Yeah, is it just me, or does it seem like it was just kind of a weird year with the Heisman? It almost seems like, because some years you have a couple players where you're actually really looking forward to who they decide the Heisman winner is going to be, and I don't know if it's just me this year or what, but it almost just seemed like the award was just given out just for the sake of giving out the award and moving on to the next this year.
I agree.
Yeah. And there's also things, because it's a media bias thing. And you think about the Southeastern footprint in the SEC, a lot of those guys are getting the nod because that's where college football is most prevalent. Same with the Big Ten. You have these two huge conference powerhouses with these media markets that are playing in the prime time, time slot. And so they get a lot more exposure. There's a lot more votes coming from the Southeast and from the Northeast, or, the Midwest, so to speak. And I'm not saying any Pac-12 player deserves it, because God, man, the Pac-12 has been awful the last couple of years, but I don't think they're voting in the best players like McCormick from UTSA. Go Roadrunners.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, when I looked up their stats, dude, them guys, they were some players. All three of them guys were exceptional players. So I was just joking in the beginning. I mean, I don't want to ever discredit anybody that's playing D1 football. Gosh, that wouldn't even make sense. But it just is what it is when it comes to that stuff. As I said before, it's just, I think there's you could probably actually name a bunch of guys. And I also agree with Vargas on the point of that as well. I can recall in numerous years in the past that the Heisman was like talked about all throughout the season. And this season, I don't even think I really heard anything about it until this last week. It was like, all right, these 4 or 5 guys are, our finalists, pick one basically. And that's it. So I think we've touched on everything to talk about, because that's how quick it's been this year.
Well, Palmer, I'm curious, who would you say is the best defensive player in college football this year? Because there was a lot of hype around Thibodeau for sure, but injuries and whatnot. Was he even the best pass rusher this year in college football?
No, not
I didn't
even.
think so either.
And I don't know the kid's name off the top of my head, but that defensive end from Michigan who was actually in the Heisman race, he is by far the best defensive pass rusher, at least. I think so.
Tough, yeah.
I know Alabama's got a good outside linebacker that could be in that consideration as well. So no, and the thing about Thibodeau, and I was really high on Thibodeau for a little bit. I mean, for God's sakes, yeah, for you guys who are watching the YouTube video, like, share, and subscribe. I've been wearing Texas gear because I am a Texas fan. I talk about UTSA a lot, and I'm an Oregonian though, and I know a lot of the listeners might not pick up on that. So I want Oregon to be successful, and I really wanted this Thibodeau to get the credit that he deserves because he's an athletic freak. But I just feel like his time at Oregon has been a little underwhelming for his talent. And I think we might have another Herbert situation where he was good in Oregon and as a Duck, but when he gets to the NFL and actually gets himself a good defensive coordinator, and then, Herbert getting an actual quality offensive coordinator, then you'll start seeing him thrive or be a bust. I don't care. He'll make millions either way.
I think that's well put. That's well put, man, because you're right. Herbert, there's several people I talked to who are like, man, I can't figure out, like, he's so good in the NFL, but I feel like Oregon, there was something about his time at Oregon that it seemed like it could have been so much better, and that kind of seems to be the same vibe I get with Thibodeau too. Also, he was hurt and whatnot, but I'm really glad you said that kid from Michigan, I forget his name again, but I agree, man. He's tough, and he's going to have himself a career in the NFL as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Hutchinson, I believe is his name. He is tough, and kind of going down that same lane, but at the same time, a very important to me anyway is that's why a lot of these kids that are really pursuing and seeking to go to college, this is why it's so vitally important to not just go with it because it looks good, right? You got to make sure it's a system that you got to know your style of game. And if you're that elite of a player, you should know your style of game. And so you should really seek out accordingly, like what system is going to work. And what I'm saying is just because it's Oregon and it's like, oh, well, it's Oregon or it's, Utah or it's, some other school that isn't like your super big power schools. And so you end up going to Oregon, but it really would have benefited you more to go to Utah because you would have got more out of that whole situation. And I think you see a lot of those mistakes. And to prove my point, that's why you see the transfer portal so flooded, because you have people that, the coach shows up. I mean, let's be honest. If a high profile, coach, if Nick Saban shows up and says, hey, I want you to play at Alabama, and man, we really, really want you, you're going to be a great fit, and goes through all this, right? It's going to be very hard to say, okay, no, I'm not going to go to Alabama, right? But a lot of these kids really do need to sit back and think about that. Okay, what kind of system does he run? Would I fit in that system? Because not every system works for every kid. And that's what people really got to understand.
No, and I agree. But I'd also put the burden on the coach as well. I mean, when you look at the transfer portal, how many of those kids are transferring out of Alabama?
Yeah, good
Not
point.
a whole hell of a lot. And,
Yeah.
it just goes back to, and I hate this word. I really just effing hate the term GOAT because it's so saturated in today's vocabulary,
Yeah.
And it's the greatest of all time, and that is Nick Saban on multiple levels, not just his coaching. But he says what he means and he means what he says. And typically kids stay there. Now, unless they really want playing time, yeah, they'll transfer out. But I want to do two things here, guys, real quick. So first, I want to actually, secondly, this will come second. I want to address what Vargas said about his friends asking why was Herbert just kind of okay and then just thriving in the NFL. But first, I would actually like to take a step back. There was a game this weekend, and I know you guys already know about this because we talked about it before going on air. But I want to make sure the great listeners of this show, like, share, and subscribe, understand that there was a football game this weekend in college football, and it was the Army-Navy game, one of the most historic rivalries out there. And Navy came out on top, and I think there needs to be a reverence due to these fine young men and any young person that goes to these academies. Because let's make no mistake, going to a military academy, whether it's the Air Force, the Army Academy, the Naval Academy, and then for you D3 football fans out there, there's a Coast Guard Academy over in Connecticut. Go Bears! And that's right, I watch that much college football, even though what D3 is doing. But in order to get into these academies, you're signing up to go to a combat situation. Your days start early and late. You get very little sleep. The academic pressures are very hard, and on top of that, these guys are Division I level athletes going through their programs. So there's a lot of respect that I have for our servicemen and women, and in particular these young men who fight this quote unquote war on the playing field, ultimately to go fight into our actual wars.
Right.
So I know there's not a lot of analysis that goes into this, but a lot of respect due to those people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the utmost respect, because I think you said it exceptionally well, is that, these aren't kids that are just, going to college and then they're going out partying at night. And after they get a big win, they're going to the bars and they're going to this. Now these guys' lifestyle looks significantly different than all of ours, and the sacrifices that they make on a day-to-day basis, on top of, like you said, they could be playing a football game this week, next weekend they could be overseas, so it's just so yes, nothing but respect and love to all of our servicemen and women out there.
Hey, and just the hype and energy at those games too. Like you said, that's one of the oldest rivalries out there, and you could just feel that energy when they play each other. Just the mutual respect that those schools have for each other, and just the energy with the crowd and stuff. It's pretty cool. And who won that one? Navy won that one this year.
They
They
did.
did.
17-14, close game. But
Um,
yeah,
and
no,
it-
it's cool, man. I have a lot of respect for them as well, and I'm really glad that you brought them up, man, because they don't really get the credit they deserve.
They sure in hell don't. And one of the best things about this rivalry too is that they genuinely hate each other, and those are the best types, the ones that will talk smack. But then at the end of it all, once they're out of college, now they are unified under the flag.
Right.
So yeah, it's Army hates Navy, Navy hates Army, Air Force. No one really cares about them because, and no one really knows about the Coast Guard Academy. But once it's all said and done and the athletic rivalry's over, then they come together for one united goal. But Ryan, to kind of touch on this Herbert situation and even the Thibodeau situation at this point, and this will kind of segue to something I'm hoping you guys are okay that I talk about. It comes down to coaching ultimately, and I don't blame Cristobal. A lot of people who are Oregon fans would say Cristobal kind of underperformed his recruiting, because if you look at the last 3 years of recruiting, Oregon's been in the top 10. They've been getting a lot of 5-star talent. They should be undefeated in the Pac-12 almost every damn year. Excuse my language, kids. Like, share, and subscribe. But the offensive coordinator for the Ducks, I think, is probably one of the worst offensive coordinators out there, because you can't have a kid like Herbert and have him damn near sorry, kids. Like, share, and subscribe. Dominate in the NFL, but yet you have him for a good 3 to 4 years and nothing happens with him. It comes down to, like you said, Dan, scheming. And how good is this guy really as a tactician? He's not that good, in my opinion. But so let's get off of Cristobal not performing to his upper echelons, because obviously he's good enough to get paid with the University of Miami. But I want to segue into the new coach, Dan Lanning. He's a DC, or he was the DC for Georgia, one of the top recruiters in the NCAA, and one of the best. Well, actually, I think he helmed the best defense in the nation under Georgia. And I've been getting, as soon as it happens, it's kind of cool that this show, that I have people who listen, because I've been asked 3 times within the course of a day, what do you think about this Lanning guy? And one of them, 2 of the questions came 10 minutes from each other via text. One from my best friend Thomas, shout out Thomas, and one from a girl. She's basically the reason why Jennifer Lawrence is still single. So Jennifer Lawrence, please stop messaging me. It's not funny anymore. I'm going to block you on Instagram. But basically they both asked, hey, what do you feel about this Lanning guy? And as casual fans, or maybe hardcore fans that don't necessarily pay attention to college football, a lot of people would just give an answer. I think he's a good hire. I think he's a good hire. And I typically like to wait until I see the supporting staff, because ultimately the head coach is going to be the CEO of the company. Now, sometimes you might see them call the offense or call the defense, which I assume this Lanning, being the defensive coordinator, will be in charge of the defense. But ultimately, his success is going to be predicated on who his offensive coordinator is going to be, who his offensive staff's going to be. Is he going to keep the strength coordinator and his staff? And I think if Dan Lanning, so he's 35, he's a young guy, I think he's going to struggle with maybe assembling an offensive staff. And I think he might have a hard time being 35 telling, say, maybe 60-year-olds what to do. And maybe it's not even really on him. It's going to be on those 60-year-old farts saying, I'm not taking this from, this young buck. And I said buck, everybody, B-U-C-K. And I think that's going to be his ultimate challenge. But if he's able to get the proper offensive staff, then I think Oregon will do fairly well. The only caveat to that is the recruiting base for Oregon is out of California. That's a good portion of their 5 to 4-star recruits. Well, now that Lincoln Riley's in USC, how many of those kids in Los Angeles are going to stay home? Because, when Pete Carroll went away, the Oregon Ducks played and got a lot of those 5-star recruits. And just to keep this in mind, guys, this was verbatim the text message I sent to Thomas and this aforementioned lady who's the reason why Jennifer Lawrence is single. And basically I copied and pasted and sent them both the same text. Now, of course, I took care of business first with this young lady because, you know, she's priority over my, you know, 12-year friendship with Thomas. And then I sent him the same text.
And I think you're right. That's definitely going to change things up a little bit. And that is typical anyway, at least on the coaching corrals that I've seen. You know, you'll see some of those guys kind of shift a little bit. And it also depends because the coach themselves are recruiting, but they actually got part of their team that's out recruiting as well. And it really depends on what kind of relationship and kind of stuff that they're building out there with some of these kids too, because, you know, but yeah, the pool's going to get more challenging. That's for sure, especially down in California, because I have a feeling he's going to grab some really good recruits down there.
Well, so do you think it's better to be a coach who's an amazing recruiter, but doesn't really tend to get the best out of his players, or a coach who's a decent recruiter, doesn't get the top tier players, but, you know, a decent recruiter and tends to really maximize his players' potential?
So basically what you're asking is, would I rather have an Iowa coach who doesn't get the best athletes, but really develops them well, sends them to the NFL, or maybe like, I guess in a way, Cristobal, no offense to you Duck fans. The thing is, and this isn't my words, I'm taking this from more or better broadcasters and such, but college football, the lifeblood of it is recruiting. If you don't have good players, you can't win. And you might win to a high level, but you're not going to beat Alabama, because the ultimate goal is to win a national championship. Look at Brian Kelly. That's why he left Notre Dame to go to LSU, because he wanted to get better recruits. Now, I'm a defensive minded coach, and it's a 2A football that I coach for. Would I like to have 6A level talent at the 2A level? Gosh darn right. But, you know, I think if you can somehow combine the best of both worlds, developing your players, but yet, all right. This guy's named Scott. I forgot his last name, but he was the the strength coordinator for Alabama. And basically the strength coordinator said, you know, my job is to build up this car. But imagine if that car was already a fully loaded Escalade and all I had to do was put on rims. Did that analogy make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely resonates. But yes, to answer and to tag team off of that even is simply this. It's like he said, your ultimate goal is to get the most out of each and every player. That's every coach. I don't think I've ever met a coach that said, well, yeah, it is what it is. He's a 5-star recruit. Nevertheless, you know, we'll see what he does, you know, because this is where you're going to get elite. There's two avenues you're going to get elite players to check out on you. Okay. Number one is you're not pushing them hard, because elite players have been pushed hard from day one, and they're going to see that for what it is fairly quickly. Right. And you've gone against everything that you've told them from the beginning, or the two turnoffs that I know of. You know, of course, I'm not super heavy into that market, I guess you would say, but I would think that, yeah, you want them to get comfortable, and you want to build that relationship is huge. And that way you can be hard on them, because you can't just start screaming at a kid you don't really know nothing about, you know, and you haven't built any relationship with. I can tell you, because I've done it, and it does not work. You know, it's and it just simply, my passion for the game comes out. And it's like, there's some players that and some of these guys I've gotten on to is kind of, so I guess what I'm trying to do is give you so many different aspects to this. It's not just a one size fits all type of thing. You know, there are some kids that walk into a locker room and just think that they've already arrived. You know, that never goes over well with me, you know, because, you know, I know plenty of super elite players that never walked into a room like that and still don't walk into a room like that. And it's like, so who are you? You know, so, you know, it works for everybody. It's a different day and age. So we kind of got to be a little more particular with some of these kids, but nevertheless, you want to get the most out of each and every kid. You just gotta, I think as a coach, the challenge is you do have to address different kids differently. I mean, that's just the way it is. And there's no getting around that. You know, one guy there's no cuss up and down the floor. And then right at the next aspect is you got to treat this kid a little bit different, but the ultimate goal as a coach, as most all coaches, is I need to get everything I possibly can out of this guy. And then also really get them adapted to their role and what their job is on the team per se.
Well, I think that's what's so cool about sports too is, and specifically team sports, you could have these whatever 5-star players, but if the chemistry's not there, if the buy-in's not there from the whole team, you'll see teams with less talented personnel who will outperform you. And like, to me, that's what's so cool about sports is it's more than just those top tier athletes that make a good team. And I think that was what was so surprising with me with Cristobal was all I ever heard was how great of a recruiter he was, and he was, but it was weird to see that not translate to the field, and I could be wrong here, but I look at a team like Cincinnati, for example, right? They've had a great year. And I could be wrong on this, but does Cincinnati have the type of players that Oregon has? I don't know.
No.
Did they just have a better system and a better coach and buy-in and that's what's translated to their type of season? It's just, it's interesting to really think about that. And ideally you'd want to have a great recruiter and a great coach, right? That's plan A, but yeah, it seems like if you get a squad that's bought into the system like a Cincinnati, man, you could make some noise and do some damage for sure.
Well, and I was going to agree. The thing about Cincinnati too, so you're 100% correct. I don't think the Duck. It's comes down to this: what can the program do for me? And that's what Oregon and the University of Texas in this year has kind of been dealing with its players. I want the brand. I want the brand recognition so I can go to the NFL versus those kids at Cincinnati who, what can I do for this program? What can I do to win a national championship? And that's going to be the hardest thing for a lot of these elite talents to deal with. That's why I'm going to go back to Nick Saban being the best of all time. He can do both. He can get the best kids out there and then have them get in that mindset. What can Alabama do for me? Or I'm sorry, what can I do for Alabama? I would say Luke Fickell, if he goes to a Power 5 job, he might struggle with that. And I think it would be smart for him to stay at Cincinnati so he doesn't have to deal with that kind of ego.
Yeah, I bet he's going to have a lot of offers coming up here shortly.
All right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL. I just so you guys know, actually last week, I said the Bears I felt like they played really well against against Arizona last week. They're actually competing with the Packers right now. It's 28-27. The Packers are beating them by 1 point. So that's a nice little battle going on there. And then we had Tampa Bay squeaks another out against the Bills in overtime. That's just a guy who just gets the job done, man. Cowboys beat Washington. The Browns beat the Ravens. Vikings did bounce back after their loss to the Lions and they got a W against Pittsburgh. The Niners beat Cincy in a really close game today in overtime. And honestly, guys, my take is I feel like I'll just keep repeating myself, but depending on the outcome of this, because nobody has a bye week from here out, if I understand this correctly. And so this is going to be just gridiron from here out. And if Green Bay gets beat, I don't think it will mean anything if they do get beat, but I still think that I think it would be, I just feel like the two Bays are going to battle it out. And yeah, Patriots are still in the AFC for me, which I believe they play tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. So what are you guys' thoughts after this week in the NFL?
Well, Urban Meyer's officially been eliminated from the playoffs, so he'll have more time for extracurricular activities. So good for him.
Well, maybe he'll sign our T-shirts before everybody starts buying them.
Yeah,
that was brutal.
That would be great. I'm with you, Dan. I mean, as far as like what's changed, not much. The Packers are in a close one right now with Chicago. But Tampa Bay pulled it off. Like we said, man, they're gonna make their run. I'll tell you what, though, all biases aside, I'll tell you something that I like about the Cowboys right now, since I know that's what everybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
But but today they had a road win against the Washington football team, which
They guaranteed that win, however.
how is that still their name though? Washington. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Whatever. Whatever. But the Cowboys defense, I'll tell you what, in a day where Dak didn't do too great, he threw a couple picks. I think Zeke had 45 rushing yards or so. Throughout this time where Dak and Zeke have been with Dallas, their offense has kind of been their spark. You know, when they first came in the league, the Cowboys had one of the best offensive lines that we've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at that defense with Micah Parsons in there, and you got Suggs in there, and they're flying around, and they get takeaways often, and they had 4 takeaways today on the road, which allowed them to kind of hang in there and pull off the win. But I say all that to say is, as a Cowboy fan, that's something new from them that you haven't seen in a while, and that in order for them to really make a run in the NFC and the playoffs, that's what they got to do. So I'm not counting them out yet, but as far as the NFC goes, I'm still with Tampa Bay. I'm still with Green Bay, and the Chiefs are quietly getting hot over there in the AFC.
They are.
So that'll be interesting too.
Honestly, guys, I don't really have a lot to say about the NFL, because the thing is every time I make a pick, I am not just wrong, but I am absurdly wrong. So I'm just going to stick to what I know. I'm still with Urban, and keep grinding away, Urban, not just on the football field. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I still think it's going to be Tampa Bay and New England in the Super Bowl, and it's just going to really show how great Bill Belichick is as a coach and how great Tom Brady is as a quarterback. And I don't know if you guys seen this documentary that's on ESPN. It's called Man in Arena, kind of just going through Tom Brady's Super Bowl careers. So 7 episodes?
Yeah, I did watch that actually.
Really good insight into how Tom Brady works. And then, this might not be the greatest football take out there, but have you guys noticed how handsome San Francisco's quarterback is in Jimmy Garoppolo? I mean, my God, that guy looks like a Disney prince. I'm so thankful that he lives in San Francisco, because God forbid, if he moved up to our area, none of us would have girlfriends, or, our wives would leave us, because that guy is damn handsome. Excuse my language, kids. Like, share, and subscribe. Outside of that, I don't have a lot of NFL insight. I'm really glad that the Browns are still winning. I grew up when the Browns were the laughing stock of the league, and so at least they're playoff contenders, with these last couple of years. But yeah, guys, sorry, the NFL is not my forte this year. I've been absurdly wrong a lot.
Same here, man. It's been hard to predict, other than like the Rodgers and the Tampa Bays, but I was super high on the Titans, man, and that shit went south real quick. So I don't even know, man. I don't even know. I do think that tomorrow night's game with the Cardinals and Rams, that'll be a very telling game. A very telling game, because I think the Rams really need that win.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're sitting at 8-4. Arizona's been pretty consistent at 10-2, and I just feel like it's make or break time for the Rams in a sense. They've been good, but not consistent, I guess. And they're looking for that win. I think tomorrow is a good opportunity for that, but Arizona's tough, so time will tell.
Yeah, good luck with that. With all the acquisitions they've had, you would think that we would be talking about this from a very different perspective. Like, hey, Murray better look out. But in my opinion, I still think that the Rams better look out at this point. There are some teams, like the Chargers had an exceptional day today. Herbert was 23 for 31, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. He made some really good passes, and just some good decisive decisions. I didn't watch the whole game. I seen a very minimal part of the game and more highlights, but there are some teams lingering, like your Kansas Cities, like you said, they seem to be getting hot. And of course, they're getting hot at the right time. Um, yeah, Green Bay's slowly pulling away from Chicago right now. It's 35-27. They still are only in the third, though. So, but anyway, going back to it's just, I feel like those, if I was going to pick any of those teams, I mean, outside of the Patriots that had a bye week, I mean, the Dolphins ain't doing nothing. The Colts ain't doing nothing. The Eagles ain't doing nothing. I mean, really, you only have the Chargers that could be a threat. You got Kansas City that could be a threat. I don't know how far is Henry out for the whole season for the Titans? Did we come up with that? I'm not sure if he's out for the whole season, but I can't remember what the extremity of his injury was.
I don't know if it's for the entire season, but enough to take Tennessee out of the playoff contention and winning an actual Super Bowl. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, the Browns, I think, will creep up in the playoffs. I don't see the Bears or anybody doing anything. They got to figure their situation out. It wasn't long into the game where I'm going, Bears are up 3-0. It's like, man, their offense is actually looking pretty good. Wasn't long that Fields flies one over the sideline and a pick six for Green Bay. I was like, yeah, well, that lasted short, but hey, it is what it is. So yeah, I like I said before, one of the Bays and the Patriots for me are in the Super Bowl at this point. Of course, it's the NFL, so anybody can really make a run and really do some damage. But as far as what I'm seeing, that's all I got on that one.
Hey, and shout out to Justin Herbert, because I read a stat that he's the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 30 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. And I think it's only a matter of time before that guy's a force in the league. I mean, he already is, but it's cool to see Eugene kid out there doing his thing. And he's tough, dude. He's tough. And I think he's going to be tough in the NFL for a long time.
And he also rose above shitty coaching with this Moorhead. So you know what? I am calling for your job, Moorhead. I don't ever wish people to get fired and to relocate their kids and lose thousands of dollars in contracts. But you've been a terrible coach. You should feel ashamed of yourself. And I hope you get fired.
All right.
There it is.
There it is. It was brewing anyway. It was coming. It was coming. All right. And with that, Mr. Palmer, we appreciate you once again. We're going to have some really good bowl games coming up in the next few weeks. Lots of stuff's going to be happening. We'll be looking forward to more hot takes.
No, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming on the show. And before I go, listeners, please go on to the YouTube channel of the Clutch Time podcast, and let's actually have a vote. Let's see who is the best looking Ryan on this podcast. And Jennifer Lawrence, speaking to you once more, I think I came up with a solution for you to stop bothering me. You can either go with the most handsome man in an American, Jimmy Garoppolo, the San Francisco quarterback, or if you like the older men, Urban Meyer sure loves getting drinks and danced on. With that, guys, cannot wait to listen and hear more about basketball and baseball. Y'all have a good one.